Hello, friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Elliot, and whether you're a writer, a reader, or a lover of words, I invite you to stop what you're doing and join me for a page break. And today, joining me for a page break is author Jacinda Townsend. And we're going to be talking about her brand new book that you're absolutely going to love. It is called Mother Country. And I'm so happy to have a copy to share and display here today. We're going to be talking with her about this great book and about her career as a writer. And you'll get a chance to get to know her a little bit more personally here just in a little while as well with our rapid fire segment of questions. And so Jacinda joins us. She's taking a page break with us today. She's the author of not only this outstanding book, Mother Country, but also the book titled Saint Monkey, which won the Janet Heidinger Kafka Prize and also the James Fenimore Cooper Prize. She's a graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop and teaches in the MFA program at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. So Jacinda, welcome. So glad to have you with us on Page Break.
Thank you, Elliot. It's such an honor to be on Page Break. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so delighted. You know, we talked months ago when this book was coming out, and I was so excited about it. I couldn't wait to have you on to talk about it. I just loved it, and I've just got so many things I want to ask you about. I thought I would start and just kind of read a general summary of the book for our audience, just so they get a general sense of kind of what the book's about, and then we'll kind of probe a little more deeply into what's going on here. And I'm just getting this from the back cover. It says, saddled with student loans, medical debt, and the sudden news of her infertility after a major car accident, Shannon, an African-American woman, follows her boyfriend to Morocco in search of relief. There, in the cobblestoned Medina of Marrakech, she finds a toddler in a pink jacket whose face mirrors her own. And with the help of her boyfriend and a bribed official, Shannon makes the fateful decision to adopt and raise the girl in Louisville, Kentucky. So that's kind of the background and the impetus that gets things started. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Shannon, because she was a character that I instantly felt sorry for, really from the first 10 or 15 pages of the book. And I felt differently kind of about her by the end, but right at the beginning, I really felt sorry for her. Can you tell us a little bit about her and kind of her lot in life and where she is as she goes on this trip to Morocco? What's happened to her?
Sure. I think, it's interesting. When I was writing and selling this book, I never said she, quote, kidnapped a child, but my publisher did. And I think so instantly you're kind of set up to think that, she is this terrible, terrible person. But really, she's kind of like Lando Calrissian, because you know how he says, I'd love to help you, but I have problems of my own. Like that is Shannon. She's had this childhood where, she's kind of stuck between this neurotic and this iceberg. Her parents are kind of not that warm and friendly with her. And then she goes on into young adulthood and she collects so like $180,000 in student loan debt, $150,000 in medical debt. And so she's really struggling, like a lot of young people in this country. I wanted her to kind of be a composite of a lot of the things we're hearing about the struggles, of young people. And so when she meets Vladimir, who becomes her husband, she needs dental insurance. And so she gets married to him. And so when she sees this child pop out of nowhere, it seems like kind of the answer to a lot of problems, really.
Yeah. And, I just loved how you phrased some of the language there. And one of the things a couple phrases I highlighted in the book is how Shannon kind of feels this connection to the African continent and this connection to Morocco when she's there. She calls it the motherland after all. And when she looks at the small girl for the first time, I highlighted a quote where you wrote, "This small girl who could have come from her own barren body." So she has this sort of strong connection to Africa. And can you talk a little bit about kind of what happens when she gets there and kind of how her thinking changes a little bit? Because she kind of, all those terrible things that you mentioned she's going through and experiencing that she takes with her over there, then her kind of mindset changes when she sees this girl. So what goes on there? What's happening to her once she sees this little girl for the first time?
Sure, absolutely. It's interesting. Like, I think a lot of Black people go to Africa with these kind of mythic ideas of what it's going to be like, and that it's going to be this perfect place, and it's the motherland and the homeland. And then she gets there and it's not quite, But when she sees this little girl and she thinks, and what's kind of interesting is this little girl is the exact same color as her, and that's in part because her mother has kind of been trafficked across the desert, and there's a lot of like sort of cross-cultural pollination that's going on there. But when she sees the little girl, she has this instant sort of cosmic recognition that this could in fact be her girl, genetically speaking. And she also feels the need to rescue this child because she thinks the child has no parents and is in fact unaccompanied in the Medina. And so, that's why, again, it's a gray area to me about whether this was kidnapping or borrowing or, she does not see that way initially.
Yeah, or almost like a rent-to-own arrangement. Like I'm gonna take you home and try you out for a while and see how this works.
Exactly.
And one of the things I loved about that whole setup too, Jacinda, is we find out that the little girl has a mother. She has a mother, and is her name Soria? Is that how you pronounce her?
Soria, yes.
Soria, yeah. And that's what really struck me as I was reading that, because I kept thinking, how did the child get there? And then we find out Soria is her mother. And so she's taking this girl that she connects with on some level, Shannon does, and identifies with, and just like, and uproots her literally, despite the fact that she has a mother. She has someone who is legally responsible to her.
Yes. And, not to spoil the end, but in the end, the little girl herself kind of has to make a choice about who is her real mother. There's a whole process of her sort of almost forgetting who she is, forgetting her native Arabic, forgetting what had happened to her. But in the end, she does get to be the one who chooses that. So.
Yeah. And I love that about the book. I kept thinking so many times when I was reading the book that this really is a book about choices. The choices that we make in an instant, sort of off the cuff, the choices that we make that impact other people, whether we want them to or not. Maybe the choices that some people make because they have a privileged status. More so than other people. I love that, everything involved in the story was about choice and choices and who's making choices and what the sort of fallout is for other people. When you were writing the book, is that a theme you really wanted to explore? Or is that something that once the plot sort of started unfolding, the characters kind of took on a mind of their own and choices kind of became a theme? How did you set that up in the story?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that sort of mind melded with you, because it was one thing that I've thought about a lot in writing this book is, we do this every single day. We make these choices, and they're sort of like morally, I won't call them suspect, I'll call them morally relative choices. Am I going to recycle that bottle? Or do I really feel like that right now? Right. And so there's a chapter even where, and this was the hardest thing for me. I could imagine circumstances under which I would kidnap a child. I could not have imagined circumstances under which I would witness that and not say anything. But that's why I wrote a chapter where there are 5 different people who see this happening and say nothing, but they all have very good, compelling reasons. And so I wanted to think a little bit about that. Why do we make the choices we make? How do we justify it in our heads? And how sometimes is it the case that no choice is the wrong choice, So it is something I thought about a lot.
I loved it. And I loved, waiting to see what choices were going to be made and then what the fallout was going to be. And then, of course, the fact that all of these characters are connected by this little girl in some way and kind of what happened to her, how she got into the United States. I did want to ask you why you picked Louisville, Kentucky as sort of the place that she was going to go to. Was there something about Louisville that connected with you or resonated with you in some way?
So I grew up in Kentucky. I grew up in South Central Kentucky in a kind of much smaller town, but Louisville, to me, is it's a place where it's kind of like Morocco. It's, I always tell people like Morocco is pretty close culturally actually to Kentucky in this way that, it's a place where a lot of different cultures are meeting up and cultures you don't expect to be meeting up. There's this there are these Black people in Kentucky and they're from Kentucky. And I think there are very few stories about Black people in Kentucky for, and so that I've made a point of setting things there, at home. So yeah, there, but also because it's home.
Always easier to write about a place that you know and are from and have a connection to, and you can write about the real places that are there and the real streets and the real neighborhoods and all of that. Always makes it so much easier than creating something from scratch. That's really great.
Absolutely.
The book we are talking about is called Mother Country. Jacinda Townsend is our guest here today on Page Break. And so we're going to come back to the book in just a second, but I wanted to step into our rapid fire segment where I ask you just some rapid fire questions about yourself and about your life and your personality and all of that. You can feel free to respond or elaborate as you wish, or just answer and we'll go on to the next one. So
sure.
Are you ready to be put on the hot seat? Okay.
This sounds fun.
Yes, it is. I promise. I hope it will be fun. Okay. So are you a morning person or a night owl?
I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. My parents were both kind of farm kids, and they used to tell us, if whatever you haven't done by 11, 12 o'clock, you're not going to do. So I wake up really early and try to do all that.
Yep. I'm the same way. I'm most productive from like 5 a.m. to lunchtime. And then after that, it's a slow decline mentally, productivity wise after that. Very good. Are coffee, tea, soda, water? What's your favorite drink?
I can't drink coffee anymore because I was too much of an addict. Now I'm totally tea. What about you? Tea, coffee?
The Diet Pepsi all the way.
I love it.
Probably more than I should drink. I do drink a lot of water too, but my go-to morning thing, the caffeine to get my brain started, always Diet Pepsi. Always Diet Pepsi.
Nice.
So
nice.
One of my favorites. If someone was going to take you out to eat, where would you want them to take you?
Oh gosh, a Greek restaurant. My favorite food in the world is spanakopita and baklava. So it'd have to be a Greek restaurant.
Yum. That sounds great. Okay, a writer question. Are you a plotter or are you a pantser when you sit down to write a novel?
I'm very much a pantser. I feel like the foundation of everything is character, and so every day at 5:30 in the morning when I start writing, I'll just resketch characters and then they kind of tell me where the plot's gonna go.
Very good. So, what do you love the most about being a writer?
Oh gosh, I've always been one of these people. I was this kid who was just like way off in some imaginary space at all times, and I love that I still get to do that. I love that whatever's going on in the real world for like 2 or 3 hours a day, I have no idea what it is, and so I love going to like the other world for a while. I love that about being a writer. What's your favorite thing?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I love getting to just absorb myself in another world and another set of characters whose problems are not mine that I have to deal with and worry about. It's wonderful. I can do things to them and then I can step out and go back to my own life. That's my favorite thing. That's totally my favorite thing. So if you weren't working or writing, or teaching, what would you be doing?
Well, I play the piano very, very badly. Trying to get back into it a little bit more, because when your job becomes, or when your hobby becomes your job, you just got to go find another thing that you're bad at, right? So I'm gonna go back to that and be bad.
Perfect. Sounds great. What is one book you think everybody should read?
Oh, John Updike's Rabbit Redux is everything. That book is everything to me.
Very good. And last question, if someone was to get you a gift from, not a bookstore, can't use a bookstore, but if someone was to get you a gift from any place, anywhere, where would you want it to come from?
That's a hard, what instantly pops into my head is I collect these, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's it's a hand of Fatima, and I get them in Morocco. They're protection against the evil eye. And like, I'm obsessed with them and I have them all over my house. So it would probably be one of those.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Well, thank you so much for participating in the rapid fire questions. I appreciate that. It gives our audience a chance to kind of get to know you a little bit more and some of your likes and dislikes and everything. So thanks for participating with that. We'll go back to the book for just a couple minutes. I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
I know that the first book, your first book prior to this one, Saint Monkey, came out I think in 2014. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. What was different about writing this novel as opposed to that one? I know the storylines are different, but in terms of the writing, the revision and all of that, was this book easier, harder, about the same? How do you feel about that?
Oh, all of it. Easier, harder, and the same in a lot of ways. So both of the books were very research intensive because, of course, Saint Monkey was in the late 50s. This book was set in Morocco, partially. But with Saint Monkey, that research was in some ways so much harder because I had to interview people who had been that age at that time, or I had to go back to old magazines or old books and figure that out. The research for this book was different because I was actually going in country to Morocco and Mauritania. So in some sense, it was easier because I was talking to people. Then parts of Mauritania was incredibly difficult. It's a country where it's very closed off. Like, there was one ATM in the whole country when I was there, and it was broken. So that was a hard trip. And I interviewed slaves and anti-slavery activists, and that was emotionally very heavy for me. If I have a minute, I'll tell you a story about that. And this is partially where the book came from. When I went there in 2013, I was hosted by some anti-slavery activists, and they introduced me to a family of who had just escaped slavery, like just literally escaped. And this woman had 8 children, but the 8th child had been born free. And so I got to hold this kid, and kind of feel this power that people have felt throughout history when they finally had that baby who was born free, and it was so powerful. And I asked her, I said, what can I do for you? And she said, just tell my story. And so I tried to do a little bit of that.
Very good. What a wonderful compliment. I mean, what a wonderful opportunity to get to tell that story and do it in your own way, do it with characters and a storyline and a plot that is uniquely your own. I imagine that had to be very rewarding for you.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, without giving away too much of the ending, when a reader gets to the last page of your book, when they get to the last page of this terrific book called Mother Country, what is something you hope they take away from the experience, or something that they think about after they've turned the last page and closed the cover? What do you hope they take away from your book?
Decisions and choices, as you said, decisions and choices often feel irrevocable. But unless often we make mistakes when we make decisions and choices, but unless they're mistakes of the heart, they're not quite mistakes. And when we love hard enough to fix a mistake, we always can.
Very well said.
I hope that doesn't give away the ending, but no, I don't think that gives away the ending.
No, it doesn't. But wow, yes, that is. I can say without giving away the ending that is a feeling that a lot of readers will have, because I felt that way. Now having heard you say that, I felt that way when I left. It really made me think about love and mistakes, and is it a mistake if the intentions are good, and if you were doing it for what you thought were the right reasons for someone else. All of those things. I certainly walked away from the book feeling that way. So I'm so glad that you shared that. So in our final moments, Jacinda, how can folks stay in contact with you to find out what you're up to? And then where can they get copies of Mother Country?
Sure. So I'm on Twitter I'm Jacinda Townsend, and I'm on Facebook as Jacinda Townsend. I'm on Instagram, but kind of only in theory. I check it every couple of weeks. The book is available at any independent bookseller. You can go to, of course, bookshop.org and find it, and of course on Amazon as well.
Very good. Very good. Well, Jacinda, I appreciate you coming on to have a page break and take a page break with us today. She's the author of the terrific book Saint Monkey, which you also should read, but especially pick up a copy of her brand new book. It's called Mother Country. There's so much more we didn't have a chance to get to in this book, but it's just beautifully written, richly nuanced. You're going to absolutely love it. And I appreciate you, Jacinda, taking a page break with us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Elliot. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And a reminder as we finish up, please leave a comment in the comments field below, and Jacinda will be able to see that once this interview is available on the channel. So be sure to leave a comment or feedback if you've read any of her stuff, or if you have questions about her work, about her new book. We'll certainly get those on and forward it on to her. A reminder to be sure to follow me on my social media buttons, which are over here, and be sure you click that little red subscribe tab at the bottom to stay up to date and keep up with us on what's going on Page Break. So stay well, folks, and see you someplace soon, I hope.